Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel, where quiet moments explode into chaos. It wasn't even my party. I paid for it, sure. Rented the rooftop, booked the caterer, handled the open bar deposit. Heck, I even ironed the satin napkins because the event planner ghosted last minute. But it wasn't my party. It was Elisa's, my wife. Her coworker Tara was turning 30, and apparently that meant I needed to sponsor an entire Skyline View event with imported rose and signature sushi boats, just so Elisa's company friends could post it on Instagram and pretend they weren't all secretly planning to leave Tara's firm for better jobs. I didn't even want to go, but I went, because I always go, because I'm that guy. The guy who says, "It's okay, I'll drive." The guy who stands while others sit, who pays before anyone offers, who vanishes into the background, as if that's his default setting. And if you're wondering if that wore on me, it did, but not like it did that night. I parked the car 3 blocks away to save on valet. Elise said she'd meet me inside. She didn't offer to wait. She just texted, "Already here," face blowing a kiss. As I was hauling a box of cupcakes up the street in the wind like some delivery guy, when I walked into the venue, sweating through my one decent shirt, she was already at the center of the room, radiant, laughing, surrounded by people I didn't recognize. I caught her eye and smiled. She looked at me. Then she turned to the guy next to her, someone in a pastel blazer and designer sneakers, and said loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, "Oh, that's just my driver. He's harmless." They laughed. And that was it. That was the punch in the gut I didn't even realize I'd been bracing for. Not husband. Not Carson. Just driver. She didn't introduce me. She didn't pull me in for a photo. She didn't even offer me a drink. I stood there for 15 minutes. No one talked to me. One of her friends even asked me what Uber service I worked for. I said nothing. Just walked out back to the car. I sat in the driver's seat with the engine off, music low, headlights dimmed, and I waited for 3 hours until the party was over, and she came out tipsy, giggling, smelling like someone else's cologne. She didn't apologize. She didn't say thank you, just tossed her heels in the back seat and said, "Let's go." I should have said something. I should have demanded respect. But I didn't, because I'm me. And exactly 2 weeks later, her parents rang my doorbell, drenched in rain, faces pale. Her mom wouldn't stop shaking. Her dad looked me straight in the eye and said, "You need to sit down. There's something you don't know about Elise." I didn't sit. Not right away. Elisa's father stood in the middle of my living room, water dripping off his trench coat onto the hardwood. Her mother hovered by the door like it was still possible to turn around and pretend they hadn't come. I could hear my upstairs neighbor vacuuming, some oddly cheerful hum above the storm outside. The contrast made the moment feel even more wrong. When I finally spoke, it came out small. "Is she okay?" Her mother let out this quiet sound, not quite a sob, more like the hiccup of someone who's already cried too much. Her father lowered himself onto my couch like his knees gave out. "She hasn't been home in 3 days, he said. "And before that, she left us a letter." I blinked. "What kind of letter?" He pulled a folded paper from his coat pocket, already damp and worn from being handled too many times. He handed it to me like it weighed something. I unfolded it, recognizing Elisa's tight, elegant handwriting instantly. But it wasn't a love note. It wasn't an apology. It was a confession. A short, detached paragraph about how she'd outgrown her life, how she'd lost herself in smallness, and how she needed distance to breathe again. She mentioned me once. "Please tell Carson not to look for me. He was kind. But I can't live in that version of myself anymore." Kind. That's what I was to her. Kind. Like a gentle mistake she didn't hate, but couldn't keep. I asked her parents if they knew where she went. They didn't. Just that she packed 2 suitcases, took her passport, and withdrew $3,200 from their joint account 2 days before she disappeared. Her father looked up at me, eyes red. "We thought she might be here, or at least that you'd know something. But, Carson, it sounds like she's gone for good." And just like that, I became the last person to know his own marriage was over. They left an hour later, offering weak smiles and empty reassurances. As I stood in the hallway watching them go, Elise's voice echoed in my head. "He's just my driver," kept looping until I couldn't tell if I was furious or just heartbroken. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor of our bedroom, staring at the closet she'd emptied without me noticing. I didn't even realize how many hangers were bare, how many drawers were silent. My life had been edited behind my back. But what gnawed at me wasn't the letter. It was what happened at the party. That wasn't just a careless joke. That was a goodbye speech in disguise. And now I was alone in a house I paid for, holding the crumbs of a story I clearly hadn't been invited to finish. I thought that was the end. But it wasn't. The call came at 9:14 a.m. sharp. I remember because I was still staring at her empty closet, phone lying on the floor beside me. It buzzed once. I almost didn't pick up. But something about the silence in the house felt like a vacuum. Like if I didn't answer, I'd get pulled into it forever. "Mr. Wexler?" the woman asked. "This is Hannah from Maybrook Bank's Fraud Division. We need to confirm some recent activity on your account." I sat up straighter, heart already beginning to sprint. She listed off 4 transactions. A flight booked to Cancun. A luxury resort reservation under Elise's name. 2 high-end luggage purchases from a boutique downtown. And a $1,500 transfer to an account I didn't recognize. Every single charge had cleared. I told Hannah I hadn't authorized any of it. She paused. "Unfortunately," she said, "all 4 transactions came from your joint checking account and were verified through the app on Mrs. Wexler's device. Unless you can prove fraud, the bank considers these legitimate." I sat there stunned. I didn't even know we had that much left in the joint account. But apparently Elise did, and she had emptied it before vanishing. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just quietly hung up and stared at the wall. I must have sat there for 20 minutes without blinking. And then I did what most broken men do when they don't know what else to do. I made coffee and scrolled Instagram. She had unfollowed me. Not blocked, just unfollowed. Erased. Her profile was still public, though. And there, under her most recent post, was a picture I hadn't seen before. A cocktail with a lime wedge. Her hand, perfectly manicured, resting on a beach chair. Sunglasses I'd never seen. A location tag that read, Playa Escondida, Mexico. She was gone. Not lost, not confused, just on vacation. With my money, I clicked into the tagged photos, expecting more shots of drinks or beaches. Instead, what I found made my stomach flip. Someone had posted a blurry group photo from the resort bar. And there she was, Elise, laughing, sitting on the lap of a man I didn't recognize. Arm draped around him like she belonged there. The caption read, "Mexico with these wild souls." I stared at it for a long time. Not because I was shocked. Not anymore. But because something in my brain finally snapped into place. This wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't a breakdown or a runaway bride situation. Elise had planned this. She'd used me to fund her escape, then discarded me with the same careless efficiency she used to book that resort. And I didn't even see it coming. Except, maybe I did. Maybe deep down, I knew I was becoming irrelevant. Maybe the grapes in the store and the driver comment and the 1,000 tiny moments of dismissal had been breadcrumbs she was leaving on purpose. So I wouldn't be surprised when she vanished. So she could say, "I warned you. I gave you signs." But what she didn't count on was her parents showing up. And what they didn't count on was the name I recognized in that photos tag. Because it wasn't just any man Elise was with. It was someone I'd once trusted with everything. I tapped the photo again, zoomed in. The resolution was grainy, taken at night, probably by someone already 2 margaritas deep. But I'd know that smirk anywhere. That jawline. That dumb silver chain he always wore like he was stuck in a time loop from 2008. Cody, my former best friend. Best man at our wedding. The guy who once cried on my couch because his girlfriend left him over text. The same Cody who helped me paint our guest room when Elise first moved in. The one I trusted enough to hold my spare house key. The one who always said, You're the only person who's never stabbed me in the back. Turns out I was just the last person he hadn't stabbed yet. I sat there, staring at the screen, trying to piece together how long this had been going on. My first thought was, had it started before the party? Before the driver joke? Before the grapes even? Had it been months? Years? Then something even more disturbing clicked in. Elise had introduced Cody to her new coworkers months ago at a wine tasting night I skipped because I had food poisoning. I remember because she sent me a photo of him toasting with her friend Tara, the birthday girl, and she captioned it, "You missed such a fun night." I brushed it off back then. Now I was reeling from the stupidity of my own blindness. I tried calling him, straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. What was I going to say? "Hey man, saw you sitting on my wife's lap in Mexico. Just wondering if you packed the sunscreen." Instead, I paced the house like a trapped animal. Everything inside me was vibrating with something I couldn't name. It wasn't anger. Not exactly. It was more like being hollowed out. Like someone scooped out my insides and left the shape of me behind just to watch it collapse. And the worst part? Elise had made it all so clean. No dramatic breakup. No screaming match. No divorce papers on the table with a lipstick kiss on the envelope. Just a quiet ghosting. A disappearing act worthy of a Netflix special. And Cody starring as the smug backup dancer who thought he finally got the spotlight. I thought I couldn't feel lower. Until I got a notification from my email. A message from my employer. Subject line, payroll discrepancy alert. First, I thought it was spam. But when I opened it, my stomach dropped again. Apparently, someone had attempted to reroute my direct deposit to a new account. An account I didn't recognize. I called HR immediately. They froze my payment. Told me they'd flagged it as suspicious since it didn't match the usual credentials. I asked if they could see who requested the change. "Not directly," the woman said, "but it came from a login under your credentials. It was submitted 2 nights ago, through a VPN traced back to Cancun." I nearly dropped the phone. Elise or Cody or both hadn't just drained our joint account. They tried to steal my income, my lifeline, my rent, my bills, my food. This wasn't just betrayal. It was full-blown sabotage. I suddenly saw everything clearly. This had never been about freedom or finding herself. Elise was never looking for space. She was looking for a clean escape with a financial cushion, and she figured I was too spineless to notice or fight back. Maybe she was right. Until now. That night, I sat down with a pen and paper. Not a text. Not a call. Not a tantrum. A letter, the kind people write when they're finally done being polite. But it wasn't for Elise. It was for her parents. Because they thought she was just impulsive. They thought she was off being wild and lost and irresponsible. They didn't know their daughter had become a thief. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. I kept hearing her voice in my head. Elise. Laughing at that party. Calling me her driver. That was the first time she said it aloud. But in hindsight, it wasn't the first time she thought it. That night was just the first time she stopped pretending to care how I felt. The night she made it official. I was no longer her partner. I was her ATM with a steering wheel. By sunrise, I had the letter written, sealed, and resting on the passenger seat of my car. It wasn't long, maybe a page and a half, but it said everything. I didn't beg. I didn't rage. I didn't try to spin it. I just laid out the facts. I included screenshots of the bank withdrawals, of the Cancun resort post, of the tagged photo with Cody's arm around her, of the payroll attempt. I didn't dramatize it. I let her actions speak for themselves. And then I dropped it in their mailbox. Elisa's parents. The same people who showed up on my doorstep with worry in their eyes, asking if I knew where their daughter was. The same people who told me how lucky Elise was to have someone so stable. They deserved to know who she really was now. Not the version she showed them. The one who vanished with her best friend's husband and tried to siphon off my paychecks from a beachside cabana. I didn't expect a response. But I got one. 2 days later, there was a knock at my door again. I froze. I thought it might be them, maybe returning the letter, maybe wanting to talk. But it wasn't. It was a courier. holding a manila envelope with my name on it. Inside, divorce papers, pre-signed by Elise, and a note, handwritten, not cold, not bitter, worse, casual. I figured this would be easier than dragging it out. You can keep the house. I'm not coming back. Don't make this ugly, it's already over. Just let it be. Let it be? That phrase hit me like a punch to the chest. Let it be? After everything she took? The money, the time, the dignity. She wanted me to just quietly vanish like I never existed. Like I was a chapter she didn't even want to finish reading. And the most twisted part? I almost considered it. I sat there on the couch, holding the envelope, thinking maybe this was the exit ramp. Maybe I could just sign and fade. No fight, no fuss. But then my phone buzzed. An email from Elise's father. 3 sentences. We received your letter. Thank you for telling us. We had no idea. Please answer your door in 10 minutes. We're coming in person. I stared at that screen like it was a hallucination. Why would they come back? What more was there to say? 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang. They looked different this time. Not worried. Not frantic. Just wrecked. Her father's hands were trembling. Her mother's mouth opened like she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. She lied to us, her father finally said. We had no idea about Cody, or the money, or any of it. I nodded but didn't speak. Her mother pulled a piece of paper from her purse. It was another letter. From Elise. Different handwriting. Harsher. Scribbled out in frustration. A draft of something she must have thrown together and then replaced with the cleaner one they originally showed me. It had lines like, I'm sick of pretending Carson's enough. I want someone who makes me feel alive. Tell him it's not his fault. But honestly, he made it easy. Her own mother couldn't finish reading it aloud. She folded it back up and said, I'm sorry. I don't know what she's become. I didn't either. Came out of nowhere. No warning, no text beforehand. Just a blocked number ringing through at 11:43 p.m. I almost didn't answer, thinking it was a scam call or maybe someone drunk dialing the wrong contact. But something about the timing felt calculated. Like whoever was on the other end knew I'd be up, alone, thinking about them. I answered with a flat, yeah. Silence for a beat. Then her voice. Carson. It's me. I didn't say anything. She continued. I didn't know who else to call. She sounded different. Not sad. Not apologetic. Just tired. Worn down. Like someone who'd run far, only to find the ground still crumbled beneath her feet. I waited, letting the silence stretch, hoping she'd feel how deeply unwelcome her voice had become. She finally broke. Cody left, she said, barely above a whisper. He flew home 3 days ago, took everything, even my passport. I felt something cold and bitter rise in my chest. I swallowed it. And the money? I asked. Did he take that too? A pause, then a sharp exhale. Most of it. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to hang up right there. But a stronger, uglier part of me needed to hear more. Not for revenge, not even for closure. Just to understand how someone I loved could unravel so completely. She started talking faster, like she'd been rehearsing the lines. I never planned any of this. Cody was just supposed to be a fling, a break from everything. But then, it got messy. He said we could start over, but he kept pushing me to use your accounts. Said it was temporary, that once we settled, he'd pay you back. I let out a short laugh, the kind that doesn't come from humor, but disbelief. Elise, I said, you emptied our savings. You tried to reroute my paycheck. You didn't just disappear, you deleted me. I know, she said. I know I messed up. I didn't think it would fall apart this fast. That was it. That sentence right there. That's when it hit me. She wasn't sorry it happened. She was just sorry it didn't work. She wasn't calling me out of guilt. She was calling me because her plan collapsed, and I was the last stable thing left in her Rolodex of broken bridges. What do you want, Elise? I asked, voice flat. I'm stuck here. I don't have ID. No money. I can't even get on a flight. I already knew where this was going. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was asking for help. To my own surprise, I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I didn't say the things boiling in my throat. I just let the silence do the work. I thought maybe, she said, hesitating, maybe you could book me a flight, just to get back. I can stay with my parents. I won't bother you. The sheer audacity almost made me laugh again. This woman scorched the earth behind her, then had the nerve to call the man she burned for a ride home. No, I said calmly. Figure it out. But I hung up, and this time I blocked her number. I stood there in the dark living room, phone still in hand, heart pounding. But instead of breaking down or pacing like I used to, I sat on the couch and stared at the door. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel small, because Elise wasn't coming back. The day after I hung up on Elise, I expected silence. I thought she'd disappear for good this time, licking her wounds somewhere warm, blaming me in her head for not rescuing her. I imagined she'd twist the story to make herself the victim, maybe tell someone I was cold or unsupportive. But I didn't care anymore. That part of me, the one that used to bend until it cracked, was gone. What I didn't expect was to hear from her parents again. Her mother called me directly, from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Carson, she said gently, we'd like to speak with you, in person. I hesitated, unsure if I was ready for another emotional round of apologies and confusion. But something about her tone felt different, sharper, calmer. We're not coming to plead on her behalf, she added. We're coming to set something right. We met the next morning at their place. It was strange walking into that house again, the same one where Elise and I celebrated our first Christmas as a couple, the same hallway where her father once told me he was proud to have me as a son-in-law. They looked older, like the last few weeks had taken years from them. But what struck me wasn't the sadness, it was the resolve. Her father motioned for me to sit at the kitchen table. There was a folder already placed there, sealed with a thin red band. I looked at it, then back at him. Elise never told us everything, he began. But after your letter, we started digging. They'd spoken to Cody's ex-wife, the one Elise used to call neurotic. Turns out, she wasn't crazy at all. She was the one who confirmed that Elise and Cody had been texting long before the rooftop party. Long before Elise started pulling away from me. She even showed them screenshots Elise had sent to Cody, complaining about how dead our marriage felt, how she was suffocating in a life she claimed she never really wanted. The folder contained copies of all of it. Messages, timestamps, receipts. Enough to tell the full story, the betrayal, the lies, the coordination. Elise hadn't just run off. She'd engineered her exit like a criminal slipping out the side door with the cash. Her father looked at me and said something I'll never forget. We raised her to be strong. But somewhere along the way, she decided strong meant selfish. And that's on us. I didn't know what to say. For so long, I'd carried the shame like it was mine. Like I was the one who wasn't enough, the one who got boring or bland. But hearing them take responsibility, even a piece of it, shook something loose in my chest. Her mother reached across the table and placed a small check envelope in front of me. This won't undo what she did, she said softly. But it's what we can do. We had no idea she touched your savings. That she tried to take your paycheck. I opened it, stunned. It wasn't just a symbolic gesture, it was a real check. Enough to patch the holes she left behind. Rent, bills, and then some. I wanted to refuse, to say I didn't need their pity. But I realized it wasn't about pity. It was about closure, about them trying to clean up the mess Elise had left in every direction. We're going to cut contact for a while, her father added, until she figures herself out, if she ever does. And then, just before I left, her mother stood at the door and whispered, "You deserved better. And we're sorry it took us this long to say that out loud." I drove home feeling like something had finally ended. Not with a bang, not with a screaming match or slammed doors, but with quiet truth. The kind that doesn't need to be shouted because it finally feels real. But the real final chapter wasn't mine to write. Not yet, because 3 days later, Elise came back. It was raining again. Not pouring, just a slow, steady drizzle that made the whole neighborhood look like it had been forgotten by the sun. I had just gotten back from work, carrying 2 grocery bags and humming something tuneless under my breath. When I saw her, she was sitting on the porch steps like nothing had happened. No suitcase, no makeup. Her hair pulled back in a way I hadn't seen since we first started dating. She looked smaller, somehow not physically, but like the sharpness that once made her untouchable had dulled into something uncertain. "Elise," I said flatly. She looked up, eyes red. Not from crying, from exhaustion. "I don't have anywhere else to go," she said. I didn't know where else to be. I didn't invite her in. I didn't yell. I simply placed the bags on the kitchen counter, closed the door behind me, and left her sitting there in the rain. And I wish I could tell you that made me feel triumphant or vindicated. But it didn't. What I felt was peace. For the first time in years, I had nothing left to fix, nothing left to chase. Elisa's return wasn't a second chance. It was proof that walking away had been the right thing all along. Later that night, I got a text from her. Just 4 words. "You really changed, Carson." And maybe I had. Maybe being her driver, her doormat, her background extra. Maybe all of that had finally broken me open enough to rebuild something stronger. Not louder, not colder, just real. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I signed the divorce papers the next morning and dropped them off at the courthouse. A week later, I booked a small weekend trip by myself. Just me, a cabin, and a chance to sit still. No one calling me names. No one draining me dry. No one needing me to be invisible so they could shine brighter. Just me. And it was enough. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not even bitter. I'm free. Thank you for watching this 8-part journey on Reddit Confessions.